And I think about the American presidency, there's always this specific image that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
The motorcade just clearing the highway.
Yeah.
You've got the guys in dark sunglasses with the earpieces, the nuclear football handcuffed to someone's wrist.
Right. It's this aura of absolute, unstoppable power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think that if you're the president, you just, I don't know, snap your fingers and the world moves.
It is the ultimate power fantasy. The leader of the free world.
But then
Yeah.
you dig into this stack of political science research we have for today, the case studies, the historical data, and the reality looks a lot less like ultimate power and a lot more like, well, middle management.
A guy just spending his whole day trying to get people to answer his emails.
Yes. That's the central paradox we're really unpacking today. It's the gap between what we think the president can do and what the job actually, is.
And the sources we're looking at, they refer to this as the big Q. It's this looming question that just hangs over the White House.
The big Q.
Yeah, which is Donald Trump, or really any modern president, actually as powerful as he thinks he is? Or is the office becoming, I don't know, sort of a gilded cage?
So our mission for this deep dive is to basically open up the presidential toolkit.
Right.
We're going to look at the specific mechanisms a president uses to try and control Congress, how they try to bypass Congress when they get fed up, and whether this whole system is actually working or if it's just broken.
And to really understand that toolkit, we have to start by looking at the landscape, because the sources are very, very clear on one thing right off the bat.
What's that?
The job is objectively harder today than it was, say, 50 or 60 years ago.
This is that good old days myth, isn't it?
Yeah.
This idea that back in the 1950s, a president could just sit in some smoke-filled room, make a deal, and boom, a law gets passed.
Precisely. Everyone always looks back at Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ. You know, the famous Johnson treatment?
Oh, yeah.
He would physically lean over people, intimidate them. He'd use his massive height to just loom over senators until they cracked and voted his way.
But the sources we have argue that you can't just LBJ people anymore. The physics of politics have changed.
They've identified three main variables, three massive roadblocks, really, that have made the president's life just miserable.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the first one?
Constituent awareness. I mean, think about it. The pre-internet era. A congressman goes to Washington in, say, 1960.
Okay.
He makes a deal with the president, maybe trades a vote for a new dam or a highway in his district. Does the voter back home even know the details?
Probably not. Or if they do, it's like 3 weeks later in the local paper.
Exactly. There was a buffer. Now, thanks to C-SPAN, 24-hour cable news, social media, the voter knows instantly.
Right.
And the texts highlight that members of Congress are now just terrified of their own base. They fear a primary challenge from their own voters way more than they fear a mean phone call from the White House.
That makes so much sense. So the president loses leverage because the congressman is checking his Twitter mentions, not waiting for orders from the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Exactly right. If the president asks you to do something, but your email inbox is just exploding with angry constituents,
You're going to ignore the president.
you're going to ignore the president.
Okay.
Okay, so roadblock number 2.
What is it?
The rise of the outsider. If you look at the mid-20th century, I'm talking Truman, JFK, LBJ, Ford, these guys were creatures of the legislature.
They came from Congress.
They spent decades there. They knew the secret handshakes. They knew whose kid was sick and who needed a ride home from an event.
And now we hire outsiders to run the country.
Look at the list. Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Donald Trump. They were governors or businessmen. They ran against Washington.
Even Obama kind of fits that mold, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was a senator, but not for very long.
He served less than 4 years in the Senate before being elected president. So what you have is modern presidents often arriving at the White House without really knowing how the machine actually works.
They lack those deep personal friendships on the Hill that grease the wheels for someone like LBJ.
Right. So you have a president who doesn't know the players.
Dealing with congresspeople who are terrified of their voters.
Yeah.
And then you add the third variable, which just feels like the biggest one.
Partisanship.
Yeah.
And it's worse than just disagreement. The data in these sources is actually, it's pretty shocking. Let's look at the Obama era. 2 of his absolute landmark bills. The economic stimulus package in 2009.
Huge.
And the Affordable Care Act in 2010.
Huge pieces of legislation. They really defined his presidency.
Okay, so the stimulus got 0 Republican votes in the House.
Wow.
And the Affordable Care Act.
Let me guess. 0.
0 Republican votes. Not one.
That is a staggering stat.
Yeah.
It's not just that it was hard to get votes, it was statistically impossible to get the other side on board.
Correct. I mean, aside from a few rare exceptions like the Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015, the era of bipartisan cooperation is effectively dead.
So you have a president who doesn't know the players in a system where the opposition has zero incentive to help. That sounds like a nightmare job description. So how do they actually get anything done? If the landscape is that hostile, what tools do they even have left?
Well, they usually start with tool number one, soft power.
Persuasion.
Right. The famous maxim is, presidential power is the power to persuade. Since the president can't write laws, only Congress can do that. He has to convince the people who hold the pen.
But if the president is an outsider, like we just established, who does the convincing for him?
You hire a proxy. You find someone who is an insider. And this is where the role of the vice president has really, really evolved. The sources all point to Joe Biden during the Obama years as the perfect case study for this.
Because Biden was the ultimate insider.
He spent 36 years in the Senate. That's a lifetime. He knew everyone. And Obama was seen as a bit more solitary, maybe more cerebral and private. But Biden.
I love that detail in our notes from Chuck Todd. He contrasts their styles so perfectly. He says walking into the Oval Office with Obama was courteous, very professional. But walking into the VP residence with Biden?
Man hugs.
Man hugs. And lots of touching. It says it's just in his DNA.
And it's funny, but it illustrates the point perfectly. Legislation is a human business. Members of Congress felt Biden understood them. So when the administration needed to move big issues like the stimulus or the debt ceiling,
Biden became the lead man.
he was the guy.
So you use the VP, or you use the Office of Legislative Affairs. Those are the full-time in-house lobbyists.
Right.
But sometimes the proxies just aren't enough.
Right.
Sometimes the president has to do the retail politics himself.
The perks, the rides on Air Force One, the invites to the White House movie theater.
Or just the pure pressure. There's that great story in here about Bill Clinton. It's 1993. He's trying to pass his budget.
And it is coming down to the absolute wire. The vote was incredibly tight.
He needs one more vote.
He needs one more vote. So he makes a phone call to a Democrat House member, Marjorie Margulies-Mizvinsky.
And just to set the scene, she's not exactly a power player.
No, not at all. She's a freshman Democrat from a really conservative district, and she knows that if she votes for this budget, which had tax hikes in it, her career is probably over.
Her voters will hate it.
Absolutely. So she's standing in a hallway just off the House chamber, and the president is on the line.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah.
The leader of the free world in your ear telling you the fate of his entire presidency is in your hands.
And it worked. She went back in and she cast the crucial 218th vote. The budget passed 218 to 216.
And then she lost her seat in the next election.
She did. That's the cost of persuasion. But, and this is the big reality check, the sources highlight that this charm offensive has its limits. It really doesn't always work.
I have to mention the Roslettinen story. It's my favorite part of all this research.
It is a classic. So, Republican Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, Barack Obama calls her right after the 2008 election.
Okay.
He's trying to reach across the aisle, build some bridges early on.
She picks up the phone.
She hears the voice and she says, you're a better impersonator than that guy on Saturday Night Live.
She thinks it's a prank.
She's completely convinced it's a radio station pranking her. Obama's trying to tell her, no, Ileana, it's really me, Barack.
Yeah, she just
says, yeah, sure, have a great day, and hangs up on the president-elect.
Oh, that is painful. But it really shows the aura of the office only goes so far. And we can actually measure this, can't we? The presidential support score.
Yeah, this is a key metric in political science. It measures how often the president wins votes in Congress on issues where they took a clear position.
And the trend is almost always down. It's gravity.
It just degrades over the term. You start high during the honeymoon period, and then it just slips. Yeah. And if the opposition party takes control of Congress, like it did with Clinton in 95 or Bush in 07, that score just falls off a cliff.
So let's just recap here. The landscape is hostile. Soft power and persuasion are unreliable, and they're declining in effectiveness. But the president still has promises to keep. They can't just sit there and say, oh, well, Congress hung up on me.
No. When persuasion fails, they change tactics. And this brings us to tool number 2.
Direct authority.
The hard power.
This is the fine, I'll do it myself strategy.
Exactly. And the primary weapon here is the executive order. Now, we hear this term all the time, but it's important to define it.
Go on.
An executive order isn't technically a law, but it has the effect of a law. It's an official instruction to federal agencies on how they should operate.
But the sources call this an extra constitutional power. Why is that?
Because it's not explicitly laid out in the Constitution as a way to create policy. The Constitution says Congress makes laws, but presidents have used these orders more and more to just bypass a stuck Congress.
The problem is, because they aren't real laws, they're flimsy. The sources use the term ping pong to describe what happens next.
Yes. If you live by the pen, you die by the pen. A new president comes in and can just shred the old orders. The classic example is the Mexico City policy.
That's the one about funding for foreign organizations that discuss abortion.
That's the one. Reagan signs it to ban the funding.
Then Clinton comes in.
And revokes Reagan's order immediately.
And George W. Bush comes in.
Reinstates it on his second day in office.
And then Obama.
Revokes it again. It's policy ping pong. And it creates this massive instability because the rules of the game change every 4 or 8 years.
But despite that, presidents love them because they're fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Obama really ramped this up, didn't he?
He did. After 2011, when Republicans took the House, Obama realized his legislative agenda was basically dead. He famously adopted a "we can't wait" attitude.
I remember that.
He explicitly said in his 2014 State of the Union, "Wherever I can take steps without legislation, that's what I'm going to do."
So he used orders to do things like raising the minimum wage for federal contractors because Congress wouldn't raise the national wage.
Exactly. But there is a catch. The president is the chef, but the Constitution is the recipe book. You can't just cook whatever you want.
The
courts are the check on hard power. The
Right.
sources really highlight the DAPA immigration order. Obama tried to use an order to delay deportation for millions of undocumented immigrants.
Huge policy shift.
Massive. And Texas sued.
Of course.
Texas and 25 other states, and they won. The courts ruled it unconstitutional. They said he breached the take care clause, which is the duty to faithfully execute the laws, not rewrite them.
So hard power has a glass ceiling. Which brings us to Donald Trump.
Yes.
If Obama was, "we can't wait," Trump seemed to view executive orders as his, primary mode of governing right from day one.
He signed 12 in his first week alone, but the sources note a really steep learning curve there.
Oh, the pipeline order, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He signed an order requiring U.S. pipelines to be made with U.S. steel. Buy American. It's a great slogan.
Right.
But he didn't seem to realize that this contravene World Trade Organization rules that the U.S. had already agreed to.
Whoops.
Yeah. One expert in the text commented that Trump needed to go back to civics class because you can't just repeal international agreements with a signature.
And then, of course, there was the travel ban.
A massive controversy. An order banning refugees and citizens from 7 Muslim-majority countries. It caused absolute chaos at airports.
It led to the firing of the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates.
Yes, because she refused to defend it. And it was immediately tied up in court challenges.
It just really shows the friction. The president tries to use force, and the system, the courts, the states, it just pushes back.
Which brings us to the ultimate clash. This is the escalation ladder. Persuasion isn't working. Executive orders are getting blocked by judges. What happens when the president wants to do something expensive, and Congress just says, absolutely not?
This is tool number 3, the nuclear option.
Emergency powers.
Right.
And this is where the conversation about presidential power gets really serious. This is where we move from hard power to what the sources start to call imperial power.
And the case study here is the border wall.
It is the defining moment for this entire topic.
So walk us through it. It's 2019.
It's early 2019. Trump wants $5.7 billion to build the wall on the Mexico border.
His signature campaign promise.
He needs the money.
And Congress, specifically the Democrats who control the House, said no.
They refused. Now, normally, that is the end of the story. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse. If they don't appropriate the money, the president can't spend it, period.
But Trump didn't stop there.
No. In February 2019, he declared a national emergency. He cited the situation at the border as a crisis involving counter-narcotic activities.
And this declaration basically unlocked a back door.
It allowed him to bypass Congress entirely. He reached into the Pentagon's budget money that Congress had designated for military construction and drug interdiction, and he transferred about $1 billion of it to build the wall.
Wow, that feels like a huge loophole.
Yeah.
He effectively took money from one bucket and put it in another, ignoring the people who own the buckets.
It was incredibly controversial. Democrats labeled it unconstitutional. Even the Senate, which had a Republican majority at the time, voted to overturn the emergency declaration.
And 12 Republicans crossed the aisle.
12 Republicans said, no, you can't do this.
But Trump has the veto, right? That's his shield.
Exactly. He vetoed their resolution. And because they didn't have the 2/3 majority to override his veto, the emergency stood. He successfully routed around Congress to spend money they had explicitly denied him.
The sources use that specific term for this kind of behavior, the imperial presidency.
Yes. It refers to a presidency that has become uncontrollable, one that's exceeding its constitutional limits, particularly by usurping the legislature's powers.
So bringing it all the way back to our big Q, is the president as powerful as he thinks he is?
It's a split verdict, and that's what makes this so dangerous. On one hand, you look at the daily frustrations. They have to beg for votes, they get hung up on, their executive orders get blocked by judges in Texas or Hawaii.
Support score data.
The support score data shows their influence just evaporates as their term goes on. In the normal lane, they're weak.
But that weakness is the trigger.
That's the thing, because the normal way doesn't work. Because of the gridlock and the partisanship, presidents are finding ways to break the glass. They are moving to emergency powers.
So the dysfunction of Congress actually encourages the president to become more imperial.
Precisely. The gridlock might actually be fueling the very expansion of power that the Constitution was designed to prevent. If Congress won't act, the president will find a way to act alone.
That is a fascinating, if slightly terrifying thought. We've gone from man hugs and polite phone calls to full-blown constitutional crises in under 20 minutes.
That's the nature of the office today. It is a constant test of the system's boundaries.
But to you listening, here's the thought we want to leave you with. Think about that term, imperial presidency. If Congress remains broken, if they can't agree on budgets or immigration or health care, are we effectively forcing the president to rule by decree? Or is gridlock just a convenient excuse for a power grab?
It's a question that is not going away anytime soon.
Definitely not. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.